There is a silence that echoes through the soul of a woman who walks through life without a husband. It is not always a silence of sorrow, but a silence of mystery, of resilience, of hidden strength that the world often overlooks. You see, woman was not created to be half a person. She was created whole. Marriage may crown her love, but it never defines her dignity. Whether she wears a wedding ring or bears the mark of loneliness, her soul remains the tabernacle of divine grace. Loneliness is not always the tragedy we think it is. In fact, for the soul that is willing to listen, loneliness becomes a sacred summons, a divine call to depth. It strips away the noise of shallow relationships and fleeting conversations and brings a woman face to face with the eternal. When she is no longer distracted by companionship, she becomes available to communion, not with man, but with God. In the quiet ache of solitude, her ears are open to whispers from heaven. She starts to realize that the world often fills itself with people just to avoid facing itself. But the woman who is alone does not have that luxury. She must meet herself. She must wrestle with her own soul, and often with her own shadows. And in doing so, she discovers what many never will, that her worth was never in being chosen by man, but in having already been chosen by God. Loneliness, then, is not a punishment. It is a pathway. It is where depth is dug, where roots are grown, and where the soul stretches beyond the surface into mystery. While others are building lives on noise and company, she is building character in silence. She is not behind, she is beneath, digging a foundation that no storm can shake. What others interpret as emptiness is often the fertile ground of spiritual richness. God does some of his best work in hidden places. And the woman who walks through the valley of loneliness with grace will one day emerge not empty, but overflowing. The world often measures a woman's fruitfulness by the children she bears or the home she builds with a husband. But heaven sees differently. A woman without a husband is not disqualified from bearing life. She is simply called to a different kind of motherhood. Her womb may not carry a child, but her spirit carries something even more enduring: influence, compassion, wisdom, and divine love. There is a sacred fruitfulness that does not begin in biology, but in the soul. It is the kind that touches lives in quiet ways, through words that heal, actions that uplift, and prayers that protect. She may not rock a cradle at midnight, but she rocks the foundation of lives through her faithfulness, her counsel, her service. Souls grow stronger under her guidance, hearts mend under her presence, and many unknowingly rise because she quietly chose to kneel. Such women become spiritual mothers to the forgotten. They become mentors to the lost, anchors to the anxious, and lights to the wandering. Their homes may not echo with laughter of children, but their lives echo in the memories of countless others they've helped carry through darkness. They pour out themselves not into one family, but into many, sometimes into a generation. And let us not forget, even the Blessed Virgin Mary, the most exalted woman in all of history, was called Mother, not just because she bore a son, but because she bore sorrow, truth, obedience, and love without condition. So, do not say the unmarried or widowed woman is barren. She is the tree planted by streams of living water, yielding fruit in season, though the world may not see the harvest. Heaven does, Sheen might say. Her maternity is not measured in flesh, but in faith, not in birth pains, but in soul prayers, and what she births in the spirit may outlast the empires of men. The world, in its shallow lens, often sees a woman without a husband as lacking, as unfinished, as if her value must be confirmed by a man's choice. Society whispers that something is missing, that perhaps she's too much or not enough. She becomes the subject of silent pity or worse, judgment. Her worth is weighed against rings she doesn't wear, anniversaries she never celebrates, or children she didn't raise. And yet, what the world misjudges, heaven sees with clarity. God does not measure her by what she lacks, but by what she carries. He does not see an absence. He sees a vessel set apart, a heart capable of enduring rejection without growing bitter, of standing alone without collapsing, of walking without applause and still continuing forward in grace. These women are often unseen warriors, strong in ways the world will never understand, faithful when no one is watching, generous even when they receive little in return. Many of them walk through life misunderstood because they live by a different rhythm. While others chase validation, they seek vocation. While some are obsessed with romance, they are consumed by purpose. Their life becomes an offering, not to please men, but to honor God. Yes, the world may call her incomplete, but heaven calls her beloved. The world may overlook her crown because it isn't made of gold. It's made of endurance, of purity, of silent obedience. She bears a crown of invisible thorns, and yet she smiles, not because it doesn't hurt, but because she knows what it means. She is sharing in the sufferings of Christ. And in the end, when all worldly crowns rust and all human praise fades, she will stand radiant before the throne, not because the world ever celebrated her, but because she was faithful when no one was watching. Misjudged by men, yes, but crowned by the one who never misreads the heart. As Fulton Sheen might say, the greatest souls often walk the loneliest paths, because the world does not recognize the face of eternity. But when time ends, and the veil is lifted, heaven will rise in applause for the woman the world never understood. She may never walk down an aisle in white, never stand beneath flowered arches, or feel the weight of a ring placed upon her finger. But that does not mean she is not a bride. There is a deeper marriage than the one written on parchment and sealed by man. It is the marriage of the soul to God, a covenant older than time, more sacred than vows spoken before witnesses. Every woman, whether married or not, is invited into this divine betrothal. Her value is not in a wedding day, but in her yes to God. In her purity of heart, in her unwavering loyalty, in her silent sacrifices, she mirrors the church, the bride of Christ. She belongs not to a man for a season, but to Christ for eternity. And what she may not receive from human arms, she is daily offered from pierced ones. She walks through life with a sacred intimacy the world may not see. While others find their security in husbands, she finds hers in the bridegroom who never leaves. While others seek love in the temporary, she clings to the eternal. She wakes and sleeps in the embrace of grace. She does not need roses on Valentine's Day. She receives mercy new every morning. She may not have a diamond on her hand, but she carries the treasure of unshakable peace in her soul. This spiritual marriage sanctifies her. She is no less radiant, no less dignified, no less womanly because her altar is not earthly. In fact, it is often through this hidden union that her femininity shines brightest, not in being possessed, but in being poured out in love that asks for nothing in return. She does not need a veil to be sacred. Her veil is the humility with which she walks through a world that misunderstands her. Her bouquet is the fruit of the Spirit she carries in her daily life: kindness, gentleness, patience, faith. Her aisle is the narrow road she faithfully walks, and her vow is renewed every time she says yes to God instead of the world. As Fulton J. Sheen might say, the woman who walks alone with Christ walks with more than the world could ever offer. She may never hear earthly music play for her entrance, but all of heaven will stand when she enters eternity, clothed not in lace, but in light. She is not a victim of fate, though many may assume she is. They look at her singleness or widowhood and see only the shadow of what might have been. They wonder what she did wrong, what choice she missed, what man failed to arrive. But this view is blind to the sovereignty of God, for she is not forgotten. She is not rejected. She is not left over. She is chosen, not by man, but by Providence. Her life is not an accident or a consolation prize. It is a divine orchestration, tailor-made by the hand of God. Every unanswered prayer, every unopened door, every long night of waiting was not wasted. It was weaving her into something sacred. She is not drifting through life hoping for meaning. She is being directed, often in silence, to fulfill a calling far higher than comfort. She is a vessel, not of random chance, but of eternal purpose. She holds within her something the world needs, something time cannot steal, wisdom born from silence, resilience shaped by loneliness, and love that was never diluted by dependency. Her hands may be empty of what the world celebrates, but her soul is full of what heaven treasures. Where others see delay, she learns discipline. Where others see absence, she finds abiding presence. Where others feel bitterness, she discovers blessedness, because she walks not by sight, but by surrender. She knows her story is not being written by luck, but by love, a sovereign love that wastes nothing and overlooks no one. She does not need to cling to a man's arm to feel guided. She is carried by grace. She is led by wisdom. She is overshadowed by mercy. And while the world moves quickly to label her as alone, heaven calls her assigned to tasks only the unbound can carry out, free to go where God sends, free to serve without division, free to be poured out like oil at the feet of Christ, extravagant, necessary, and holy. As Fulton J. Sheen might have said, "The woman who thinks she is forgotten by fate has not yet looked high enough, for she is not lost in the shuffle of time. She is found in the fold of eternity, and what she carries is not leftover life, but divine assignment." So, what happens when a woman lives without a husband? Sometimes she mourns, sometimes she dances, but always, always, she becomes more of who God called her to be, not less. She is not alone. She is aligned, not empty, but eternal. And when the world turns away from her, heaven leans in. As Fulton J. Sheen would say, God never leaves the soul he loves without a companion. When man is absent, grace is present. When no one holds her hand, the cross holds her heart. And that is enough.